that kind of stuck with me from that point on. We really weren't that well off. If you truly can and want something, you should go for it. Maybe it's going to be your favorite thing in the world, and if you don't do it over, a few bucks, you'll never know that. I think it unlocks a lot of experiences that I would never spend cash for, but I can attain that using points instead of spending $10,000 on that flight.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Highest Version Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Philivong, and on this podcast, we talk about falling in love with the process of getting better every day and becoming the highest version of ourselves. Today's guest is Billy Khan. Billy was born in Hong Kong and moved here to the US at the age of 3, where his passion and dreams was to become the credit card guru. Just kidding, not his true passion, but this is the guy I always go to ask about, hey, what credit card is good for X, Y, and Z, because he has shown me the experiences, memorable life experiences that he's been able to have because of his knowledge of credit cards. And that's where his passion comes from, to live life experiences that are memorable. Besides being a master of credit cards, he's also the lovely husband of a past guest, Tara Khan. So let's welcome Billy. What's up, man? Thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate
it. Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me. Beautiful set you got here.
Thank you.
I see all the improvements you made to the neon sign and everything. So,
dude, it's been a long time coming. Oh my God. It's been a lot of hard work, but we here.
Yeah.
But before we get into, our questions for today, I just want to feature the Funko Pop of the episode, and that is Jason Tatum. No doubt I wanted to match the Funko Pop with your wife, Tara, because obviously you guys are passionate Celtics fans, and you guys are, live, breathe, and bleed green. So, yeah, that's why I picked Jason Tatum. I also have JB, but I feel like you have a shrine of Tatum, so might as well keep it going with this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely more Tara's shrine than my shrine, but I'll take it. Hey, Tatum's great.
Yeah, man. It's okay. You can admit it's a shrine for you. It's all right. It's all right.
Yeah, when she's not home, I bow down to it every day.
Every morning you pray to it every day. All right, man. Let's get into how you grew up. I know that through conversations you said that growing up your family wasn't well off, but your family helped you kind of not see that. How has those experiences growing up shaped you to be the guy that you are today?
Yeah. So thank you for the introduction. As you said, I was born in Hong Kong, moved here when I was 3. And, as first generation immigrants, my parents didn't exactly have, the highest paying jobs coming over. Luckily my mom did find a nice job, in Chinatown, as a receptionist. Didn't pay all that well, and my dad became a cook, right? Like a lot of Chinese immigrant families here. He was a cook, doesn't pay particularly well. He's out of the house all the time. But we got by, and I think it was, I knew that we weren't, like the richest family, right? We lived in affordable housing, in Charlestown, in Boston, and we've actually lived there, I've lived there for probably 17 years of my life, before I moved out. And actually 17 might be little. I think more than that, through college, I lived there. So, I was aware that we weren't that well off, but I will say that my parents did a very good job, I think, of sheltering me from that. And maybe a lot of the pressure they took on themselves, or even my brother took on. My brother, who's about 10 years older than I am, he moved here when he was at the same time, but he was a teenager at that point, right? Like he was a little bit more aware of our family situation, finances, and everything, and I was still a baby. I was like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So by the time I grew up, my family was a little bit more secure, a little bit like more deeply into their jobs and, that kind of safety. I will say, later on in the episode, we'll talk about like travel and credit cards and stuff. I think one of the ways that my parents and my family in general tried to kind of show or make me feel like we're not like super poor was by, going on vacations, and that I think they made that a really big part of our lives. One, because they like traveling as well,
Yeah.
but also because I think it helped us create like memories and experiences. So a lot of my early memories were actually from traveling, and that's probably where I get it now. And it was, it was great for me because I kind of made that like times where I could get away, times where I could be like, man, like this is something I want to work towards. This is something that I want for my future. So traveling, getting new experiences and stuff. So I was always aware that we weren't too well off, but we would be, whenever we could, whenever we had enough money, we would go like on cruises and take road trips and stuff. We would do like a yearly trip to Toronto because there's
I was just gonna say.
a lot of good food up there, and I think primary motivation for them was eating. Was food in the destination. So that's also where I get my love for buffets and eating lots of good food. So.
Yeah, your dad being a food blogger and everything.
Yeah. Food blogger, but he doesn't have a YouTube channel. So probably start one.
Just do it for fun. Just do it for the family.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, I guess in the future, do you want a traditional place to go to? Because I know your family goes to Toronto every year for Thanksgiving, but do you want to kind of make something like that for your future family?
I think for sure, for our future family, for sure, like a tradition of some sort. I don't know about Toronto, but if we could do something that means something to us, that'll be cool. Obviously, Tara and I went on our honeymoon in Hawaii. If we have the money, every year a trip to Hawaii sounds kind of nice.
Yeah, no, that's the dream for me and Michelle too.
Yeah.
But damn, being on this side is hella expensive.
I know.
And it keeps going like in Hawaii, I think riding around in Ubers and stuff, they'd be like, oh, a carton of eggs is like $10 or something like that. And I'm like, bro.
I can never live there.
Oh, I know about me and Michelle. Like, can we live there forever now? It's still in the plan, it's still in the future, but we don't. It's just like things are moving around right now, and Hawaii just feels like home to us. And I don't want to discredit to like any of the people that grew up there and born there. If we were there, we would definitely want to be part of that community and give back to the island. And but it's just a dream now, so we want to see where that goes once we actually try it.
Hey, we'll work towards it. When Highest Version becomes the biggest podcast in the world.
Oh yeah, if the Highest Version becomes the biggest podcast in the world, I'm going to Hawaii. No doubt. So with obviously you said that your parents and your brother kind of sheltered you from seeing struggles within your family. When was that first moment that you like kind of were aware of your family's financial situation?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I don't know if there's one specific moment that I can point to and say I realized that. Looking back at it, I think one thing that really stuck with me, and I didn't realize it at the time, was we took a family trip down to kind of like the Tennessee area. And I kind of like cars. I kind of like playing racing games or like doing go-karting or something like that. So when we were down in Tennessee, and I was probably, I don't know, like 6 or 7 at this time, my parents let me kind of do like one of those like go-kart tracks and stuff. And they let me like keep going. So basically like I would do a loop or something, and then you like pay per time you go in. And I just kept going, and I was like, can I do it again? Can I do it again? And then my parents let me, right? I didn't realize it at the time, but later on in college, we did this retreat where apparently they reach out to either your parents or like your guardian or something, and then have them write you a letter of sorts, and then they kind of surprise you with it. So like at the retreat, they said, all right, we're going to do the next activity. Like sit down, we have a surprise for you. And then we like closed our eyes. They like handed us a letter, and I'm like, I don't know what this letter could be. Like, are you giving me money? Like, what is this? And then
God.
Yeah, I know, right? And then I opened it up, and it was a letter from my parents. And first of all, this took me as a surprise because I was like, didn't know my parents. Like, first of all, I didn't know that they would reach out to my parents.
Yeah.
And that my parents would. My mom knows English, but like I've never had her write me a letter or anything. And generally, she's been pretty hands off on like throughout schooling, throughout high school, middle school, college. So I just completely didn't expect it. And then in the letter, I think it was like maybe the prompt or something to my parents was just write something that like you very very much cherished in your relationship with your son or your daughter, or, you know, if it's a guardian, whoever you're writing a letter to. And so my parents wrote that that trip to Tennessee, they at that time they weren't doing very well financially, but they still wanted to go on that trip. And they originally planned for me to kind of do that go-kart thing once, and then we would move on to the next thing, like go back to the hotel or something. But because of the joy that they saw in my face and like my like, can I go again, like that kind of thing, they wanted, they were just like, okay, we'll let you do it again and again, even if it meant like having to pay and like, you know, saving up a little bit more like in the future or something, like sacrificing in the future. And I didn't realize it at the time. I think I don't have a lot of like childhood memories. My memory is really bad. But that kind of stuck with me from that point on. Like, man, we really weren't that well off. Like, it was probably, I don't know, like a $10 ride, which for I think some families, like, it's whatever, $10. But I think to my family, it was a pretty big thing to allow your kid to go for $10 and maybe a few minutes on a go-kart track. So for my mom and my dad to keep letting me do that, I think was a really big sacrifice and really big, you know, just big sacrifice in terms of finances and stuff. So I don't know if I can point to one moment in my childhood where at the time I realized it, but I think subconsciously probably I knew that, you know, this probably isn't something I should be doing, but I'm like, man, this is so fun. I just want to do it again. And they let me. And I think if they hadn't let me and they said like, no, we're broke, you know, we did it once, you can't do it again. I think that probably would have had the opposite effect, like the very big impact on me in terms of like, man, maybe we are really broke. We can't do anything. And I think that helped shape me because nowadays I'm very much so, you know, let's do things. And Tara's kind of a little opposite in that way. You know, like Tara, she does worry about money a lot, even if we're like in a better position now, she does worry about it. And she's like, can we afford this? Like, she's always asking, like, can we afford it? And I'm like, yes, we can afford it. Like, and this isn't to encourage people to like go into debt or anything to get experiences, but I think it's important to say, like, if you truly can afford it, if you truly can and want something, you should go for it. Like, you should do it, like, see how it, like, maybe it's going to be your favorite thing in the world. And if you don't do it over, you know, a few bucks, you'll never know that. And that's kind of how I live now. And I think that's kind of how my parents have tried to teach me in a way, I think subconsciously, when I was a kid.
Yeah, dude. I mean, with experiences in life, like sometimes I admit too, within my brain, I stop myself because I'm like, oh, like, can we afford this? Like, how's my money situation? Like, on a weekly basis, I look at like my financials and like, and category wise, like, oh, how much money do I have for bills? You know, do I have enough just in case of, you know, something happens, right? And then like the wants and stuff. But then when I started dating Michelle, there was moments within our relationship. She was like, look, we're on vacation, like, we're experiencing this, like, I think you have the capabilities to financially like recover if you need to. And then it's not just like her being like, oh, spend the money. It's more of like, this is something that you should experience and it's something fun to experience. I mean, the many trips that we went to like this past year, I was just like, dang, like how can we do all this? But after we've done all of them, like I'm still okay. Like I'm still able to afford things, and I know we're not paying as much, rent now, but I think if we were, then I think we would still be fine. So yeah, no, that's a huge point on just experiences in life, because life is short, man.
Yeah.
Just want to know, like, what was that first emotion that you had when you were like reading that letter? Was it just like, damn, or was it just like, oh shit,
Yeah. I don't know. I was like, I think my first reaction was definitely, how did they even get this to my parents? Like,
Yeah,
how did
yeah,
they
yeah.
get this request to my parents? Because my parents, not that they didn't care about me, but like they didn't know how to interact with the school system, I think. And that's probably true for a lot of immigrant families.
For sure.
So like I had never seen a letter like this. I had even like personally, not within a school setting. Like I don't think my parents have ever written me a letter or like written down like we love you or like we value you, like that kind of thing, right? It's
Yeah.
always in small actions, like a lot of immigrant families.
Yep.
So to have that on a page, I think was very jarring to me, like in a good way.
Yeah.
Like it was like, this is something that is physically here that I can like physically touch and like point to and say like my parents love me. And that's probably my first reaction. And then after I get kind of got over that or like processed that, I just thought back to that day.
Yeah.
And like as I said, my memory is really bad. So I didn't remember the details, but like it kind of just came back to me. It was like, man, I remember what you're talking about. I remember what my parents were talking, or like that moment. I don't remember anything else about that trip, but I'm like, that definitely sounds like me. I can picture myself there, like in that go-kart, and then running out of the gate, and then being like, can I go again? Like that kind of thing.
You still got that letter to this day?
Yeah, I definitely do. I don't know if I can like pull it out really easily,
Yeah, yeah,
but I
yeah.
definitely do. I definitely kept that letter, and there were other letters in there, but I think that was the most impactful one. So I think I have them all in a box
Yeah.
at home.
I mean, since you went to BC, I mean, obviously BC is a very high prestigious, like very academic success. So were you felt any pressure at all growing up to like, be able to get into BC, or was it just like, I just got to do well, and then if I know I'm doing well, then that's gonna mean success.
Yeah, and I think another part of my childhood, maybe unique parts of my childhood, is that I didn't feel that pressure from my parents. My parents were very lenient, and I don't want to say lenient because, of course, if I did something bad or like if I wanted to do something bad, like they would call me out on it, like any parent should. But they were very open to me like doing new things, and they weren't on top of me for like studies and stuff. So I didn't feel that pressure to like get straight A's. I didn't feel that pressure to like really study all the time and stuff. If I wanted to go out, if I wanted to go out with friends, like they would definitely let me. I think they were more like results based, so I would still get good grades, and they saw that and they were like, okay, that's fine. I also think part of that is probably I think they were more so like that with my brother.
Okay.
And so being the younger child, especially 10 years younger,
Yeah.
where like he's already in college when I'm in like middle school or high school, they definitely didn't feel like they needed to like micromanage me as much. So yeah, I think any pressure that I had was really more so on myself. Like I didn't want to disappoint them. But they didn't actively put that pressure on me, which was nice. But honestly, at times I wish they had. I always say that I wish they forced me to go to Chinese school, because while my Cantonese is, I think, pretty good, especially for like immigrant,
Yeah.
kids. Um, it's definitely not where I want it to be, and I'm still very like I don't like to use it because I'm always scared that I'll get something wrong or something.
You think you would ever just put yourself back in that school, or like do Duolingo or anything like
Yeah,
that?
I could do Duolingo, but it's like, well, probably should. I probably should. I'll say that. I probably should.
When you were going in high school, because obviously you went to, was it BLS?
Yeah, BLS. Yep.
It's a very high academic school, would you say?
Mm-hmm.
No pressures from around that point, like.
It's it's interesting because I would say I know people who like friends from BLS that would say I would never send my kids there. Too much pressure, too much like it's just not a good learning environment. Some people would say that. I personally didn't feel that way, and I don't know if that's like a it might be from how my parents raised me, like being so not lenient, but like as long as you get good grades type of thing. I didn't feel that pressure, and I was just like, okay, I know I can study. I know I can at least get like pretty good grades here, and so I didn't feel that pressure during my high school years. There were definitely instances where there were expectations. Like when you go to BLS, people expect you to, I don't know, like we send a lot of kids to Ivies. So it's kind of expected if you are even have like decent grades to kind of apply to the Ivies. So I definitely did apply to Ivies, and I was like, man, maybe I can get in. I didn't end up getting in, but it was, things like that I think can add pressure to people. And for me personally, I didn't feel it that much, but I know some people did definitely feel that pressure. And yeah, it isn't for everyone. I think it isn't a school that I would recommend to a lot of people, and it really depends. So, in certain cases, I would say maybe I wouldn't want to send my kids there, but that kind of depends.
Yeah, it depends on how you want your kids in the future and stuff like that. No, that makes sense. Which Ivy Leagues did you apply to?
I know I wanted to get into UPenn because for some reason I wanted to do business.
Okay.
And I don't really know what. Honestly, even now, I'm like, why did I do accounting? My major was accounting and information systems in the business school at BC. I have no idea why I picked that. I basically said, business sounds cool. Business, you probably make a lot of money. And I was like, if I do business, I have to do finance or accounting. And I don't really like finance, so I'll pick accounting. And that's kind of my thought process. And I would not recommend that to people. Definitely find something that you want to study and do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure, man. I mean, I've been going through that and still going through it. But right now, like, I feel like with how my relationship with accounting is just like, it pays the bills. There is still, at least with the new company I'm in, I'm interested in how their operations are. And then that kind of helps with the accounting, kind of make it more interesting for me, because everyone knows accounting can be hella dry. So it's like finding that kind of content or that kind of content, whatever it's related to, is what the thing that makes it interesting. Because at the end of the day, whatever law you got to do to treat whatever invoice or whatever that, I'm not gonna get into it. I'm boring myself right now. Yeah, accounting podcast now. But yeah, dude, I mean, I'm just so fascinated with like, obviously you learn how to handle pressure from your brother, and seeing that. Any advice you can give to people about, how you handle pressure, or for those who just like put so much pressure on themselves when it comes to academic success, anything like that?
Yeah. It's hard because I know, obviously Tara's talked about it on the podcast and how she puts so much pressure on herself. And it's really hard because I don't have really good advice, right? Like, I think it is everything has kind of led up to the point that you're at. So if you are feeling pressure now, if you are the type of person to put that type of pressure on yourself, it's hard to get out of that mindset, I think. And I think it's just setting yourself up with reminders that really like you're the one that's putting pressure on yourself. Other people aren't going to judge you. Other people, I mean, some people might, but like, does it really matter? Does it really matter that some people judge you or put this pressure on you? And 99% of the time, it doesn't. And then the majority of people out there don't care. Like it sounds kind of bad, but like a lot of people out there don't care about you, right? Like,
No, it's true, bro. Yeah.
But I think putting that in your mind and just kind of, and I think I need to learn to do this more as well. But what other people say about you, think about you, doesn't matter that much. And it's really up to you. So if you can kind of internalize that, set up reminders for yourself, it might be helpful to kind of lessen that pressure you place on yourself.
Yeah. Hey, who's talking shit about Billy? What the? What? Hey, you talking shit? Meet me outside.
It might not even be talking shit. It's like, man, that kid, he's not a hard worker or whatever. Like
that kid too damn smart.
Too damn smart. Like, yeah, and sometimes it's unintentional, right? Like,
yeah, of course.
I think sometimes people say that I am just naturally smart, and I do kind of internalize that. Like, I'm going through high school, going through college. Yeah. I'm like, man, maybe I don't need to study for this thing or whatever. And in some ways that's good. In some ways that's bad.
Yeah.
So it's always a balance. It's always like, is that right? Is like, should I be taking that into consideration at this decision or at this point? And then making the decision from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine your kid comes up to you and you're like, hey, aren't you supposed to be studying right now? You're like, hey, Dad, I got it from you. I'm naturally smart. I don't need to study. You're like, get your ass back in the room.
You gotta study. Yeah, I wonder if like it kind of like swings like a pendulum where my parents were very lax and I'm gonna be like hard on my kid.
Yeah.
No, you gotta study. You can't go out, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think for my parents, it's actually interesting because they would have let me go out with my friends and stuff, but maybe part of the reason why they were so lenient was because I didn't really do that. Like, even if I could have, I stayed home. I played video games all day. Like, that was my life. It was go to school, do homework, play video games, or play video games, then do homework.
Yeah. We know it was that one. Probably,
yeah, like 2 a.m. I'm like, oh, damn, I got to do that math homework.
Just in 5 seconds. Like, whatever.
Go back to the video game. Don't even sleep.
All right, man. Well, I think I've learned a lot of new things about you, and I think that letter is just amazing, and how a turning point is. I wonder if I give my parents that assignment, what they say. But yeah, man, I appreciate you talking about your childhood, and you brought up, I feel like there's a lot of things that you said that I feel like can resonate with, I don't know, just like young people growing up and even how we approach life. So, we just went through kind of like your childhood experiences that shaped you are today. Now here's the real reason why I put you on the podcast. I'm just kidding. Yeah. No, this is so true now in our friendship is I always consult you, and I'm not the only one consulting you about credit cards, but I just want to know, like, what was the first thing that, like, one day you were just like, all right, let me research credit cards to figure out, how to get to these certain experiences. Where did it start?
Yeah, the start of my credit card journey. Honestly, I don't have an origin story, I guess. I think I don't want to say a lot of people, but it definitely blew up during COVID, just generally, not just for me, because, people were home, they weren't spending as much, they weren't using their points. So people were, I think, more researching how to get value out of their points. And I think that's kind of where I got started, right? Like, I had credit cards at that point. I think I got my first credit card in high school. It's like maybe senior year when I turned 18 or something. And then during college, I started just learning more about like credit cards and how I guess you can make it work for you. And for me, I think I like it because it's kind of like a game. It's kind of like how do I maximize the value? Like, can I get these cool experiences that I wouldn't otherwise be able to get? Or maybe I'd get like when I'm retired, in like 60 years. And at that point, it's like, what's the point?
Yeah, no, no. That was like, why is he applying for a credit card?
But yeah, it's like a game to me. It's like a puzzle that you're trying to figure out. And I think at this point, I've kind of shown Tara. I think I've shown other people that like you can get really good like value out of it, and go to really cool places with them. So yeah, at that point, I was like, probably during COVID, I was just like, man, like I have all these points. What do I do with them?
Yeah.
And luckily, I found ways online that I could use them in cool ways.
What a good way to use your time during COVID, because obviously we're all locked down and figuring out what to do. I was dealing with depression, so I was trying to figure out how to get out of there, but I think credit card would have been nice to figure out too. All right, let's do a crash course right now. I'm like, what's the best card you think is for dining, for travel, and maybe another category that you feel like it's important to people?
Yeah, I think it's hard because everyone asks the question, right? Everyone's like, the first question is, what card do you recommend for me? And it's hard because my answer is always, it depends.
Yeah.
And that's true for a lot of things in life. But for credit cards, it is hard to recommend because a lot of the credit cards, the big credit cards, are very similar in ways. So it's like, if you ask me about dining, there's always going to be a couple that like people recommend, but at that top level, whichever one you pick is going to be great. It's going to be good. So like, obviously there's the American Express Gold, which I think gives you 4 times back. So it's like basically 4 cents on every dollar that you spend for dining. And like, that's probably one of the best ones out there. But it does have the annual fee. I know people are afraid of the annual fee.
How much is that annual fee?
I think right now it's like $325. So it was $250, and then they increased it, and they added a bunch of credits, and it's kind of a hassle to get the value out of it. But the good thing about American Express is that you can end up redeeming the points for a good value. So there's kind of 2 sides to this equation, where you might be earning the equivalent of 4 cents for every dollar, but you can also redeem it for more value than like 1 cent for each of those points. So when I say 4 cents per dollar, but I redeem it for 2 cents for every point, that's like 8 cents. You're getting back 8 cents, basically. So yeah, American Express Gold for dining is a pretty good one, but I know there are other ones out there with lower annual fees if you're afraid of the annual fee. But I would definitely recommend going with the Gold if you want to play this game of like redeeming for more value. It also has a Dunkin' credit, like a Dunkin' Donuts credit. So
really?
Yeah, every month you get a weird number, $7 a month. So you can just directly load it onto your Dunkin' app. So for the people in the Boston area, Dunkin', I know, is a big thing. So
run on Dunkin', man.
Exactly. So yeah, so I think the Gold is a pretty good option for dining. There's what are the other ones? I don't know, like entertainment. If you always go out to like concerts, watch movies, that kind of thing, or streaming services. I know Capital One has a pretty good. I think Capital One Saver has, I think, 3 times or 3 points per dollar on that. So that's a good option, and I think it's a pretty low annual fee, or maybe a 0 annual fee.
0 annual fee. That's the one you actually recommended me. So
yeah. So that's a good one. I think it also has dining multiplier.
Yep.
Dining and entertainment, that's, if you're going out a lot, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then travel, there's a lot out there. If you're based in Boston, you fly a lot, I would actually recommend the Sapphire Reserve.
Chase, right?
Chase, yes. Chase Sapphire Reserve, because that gets you lounge access into the Chase Lounge at Logan Airport.
And it's nice.
It's a quite nice lounge, which some people don't value that. Some people, like, if you're the type of person to get to the airport an hour before the flight, like, that probably doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But Some people like, getting there early and then just chilling in the lounge, which is good.
Basically, if you're Asian, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
Just kidding.
yeah.
Just kidding.
No, my mom uses that perk all the time, so for sure. And you can bring 2 guests in, I believe. So that's good for like small family or your partner or whatever.
Is there an annual fee on that one?
That one's a big annual fee. I think right now it's like $550, so it's heavy. It's heavy, but I think if you do travel a lot, if you do fly a lot out of Logan, that's a pretty good card.
Yeah.
Otherwise, travel, everyone goes for the Sapphire Preferred, which is a step down from the Sapphire Reserve, which is a good card. You can transfer the points out to partners, which is how you redeem it for, like I was saying with American Express, redeem it for big value. But yeah, but that it does take a lot of work. So you really have to want to do this and like be willing to spend time to find the deals.
Yeah, when I was doing some research on credit cards, I don't know if it's generalized or everybody does it, but CPM or so where it's like points
Cents per point.
Yeah, cents per point.
CPP,
CPP. Yeah. Do you do that in your calculation as well, or?
Yeah, I calculate it. It's a little misleading at times.
Okay.
Because, for example, the last couple big trips, Tara and I did, we just came back from Japan. We did, business class flights, and the cents per point for those business class flights, those first class flights, are like massive. I think for our flight back from Japan, it was probably something like 20 cents per point.
Damn.
So yeah, if you're actually calculating it that way, it's like, let's say I earn those points, I don't know, 4 cents per dollar that I spent, and then multiply that by 20. So it's like I got 80 cents back on every dollar I spent.
Yeah.
Technically that's true, because how you calculate it is, if I paid cash for that business class flight, it would have been, let's say, $10,000.
Yeah.
But I only redeemed like whatever, 50,000 miles on it. I think that's a sample point of like 5 or 50. Quick math, whatever. But like I would never spend that cash amount on the business class flight.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying, is that I think it unlocks a lot of experiences that I would never spend cash for. But I can attain that using points instead of eventually maybe spending $10,000 on that flight. So cents per point is kind of misleading because that's assuming that you would pay that cash amount.
Yeah. Okay.
But for me, the calculation in my head is just, I have the points and there's availability for that business class ticket that I want to try. So why not do it?
Right.
So
yeah. I mean, I feel like it's just like my biggest struggle is that like because you know how with Capital One Venture X, right, you get 10x on hotels and 5x on flights and rental cars.
Yep.
I just feel like, I don't know if it's a misinterpretation, but I feel like unless you book it through their portal, then it's not like worth it, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
So I guess like but sometimes when I look, it's like the same price as in, if I were to go to like a third party website or not. So my question to you is like, do you think that that if you do get one of these cards that are multipliers, but you have to book it through their portals, like just book it through their portals, or how do you weigh like booking through the portal versus like a third party website, I guess you can say?
I honestly typically never book through portals, even though a lot of the card issuers like Capital One want you to book through the portal to get that like increased multiplier.
Yeah.
From what I've seen online, I've never personally experienced this because I don't book through portals, but portals just adds another layer of complexity. So like if you get delayed, if you get like the flight gets canceled, or you have a problem with your rental car, you have to go through the portal or like Capital One before you get to the people who can actually fix your issue. And that's like, it'll cause headaches. It'll add time to the process. And if the problem is, the day of, you might not get a resolution when you need it. So that's why typically I think the advice is to book direct. Like if it's a hotel stay, book directly with Hilton, with Marriott. If it's a car rental, book directly with Hertz or National or whatever. So I never book through the portal.
Yeah.
But I know there are times where it's kind of necessary. Like the Capital One Venture X, the travel credit, you have to book through the portal.
Yeah. The
So
$300 travel credit. Yeah.
that's kind of the time that I would book through the portal, just to use that up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just feel like if I want to use the multiplier, right? That's like the reason why I got the card. But I understand what you're saying too. I mean, I'm trying to like figure out and navigate it myself. So this is question is coming from me too. I guess if you could give advice to a college student or someone coming straight out of college, like a young professional, what is a kind of credit card that you would recommend to them to start off? I know you said it depends, but I feel like there's probably a credit card that, that is generally like a good start.
Yeah, and I think the Chase Sapphire Preferred is popular for a reason. It is a lower annual fee, so you kind of dip your toes into paying an annual fee. So I think it's $95. You get access to transfer partners, so that's how I get like my value. Instead of using the points for like gift cards or statement credit, I transfer them out to, let's say, our first kind of business class flight was to Spain, and I transferred them out to British Airways because you could book using those British Airways points to fly to Spain for pretty cheap in business class. And so that unlocks that option for you. And typically for other issuers, for like Capital One, for American Express, you have to get a card with an annual fee to do that. So out of those, I think the Sapphire Preferred is probably the lowest annual fee to unlock that option. And you can kind of dip your toes into transferring out and looking for those deals and such. So I think all around, it's a good like beginner card just to like start you off and see if you really want to do it. Pay that annual fee for a year, try to figure it out, like transferring, try to figure out using the multipliers and stuff. And then if you're not an annual fee person, then you can downgrade it, you can cancel it, you can get some no annual fee cards like the Capital One Saver.
Yeah.
Instead of that card.
Right.
But I will say the multipliers are important in a way if you don't really want to think about it. But the real money or the real way that we have been able to do all this traveling is it's called churning. Basically, you're really only applying for cards for the sign-up bonus.
Oh, okay.
So that's where the big points come in.
Can you give us like an example of a sign-up bonus?
Yeah. I can give an example, but I think just before I do that, I think it's the multipliers will get you there someday, but at 2 times, at 3 times, at 4 times, like 4 cents per dollar, that takes a while. So card issuers will give you a sign-up bonus where, let's say, you spend $4,000 in the next 3 months, and you get like 80,000 points or something like that. And so that rate is probably something like 20%. So instead of 4 cents on every dollar, you're getting like 20 cents on every dollar. And so it's much easier to get a big chunk of points that way. And then the point of churning is that you're applying for a bunch of cards that give you that sign-up bonus. After you're done with the sign-up bonus, you don't use that card anymore. So let's say I do Chase Sapphire Preferred. Sometimes they have like 80,000 miles or 80,000 points when you spend $4,000. So I'll spend that $4,000, get the 80,000 points. I basically don't touch that card. And then I apply for another one. Let's say the Chase, if you have a business, there's a Chase Inc. Unlimited. That's their business version of the card. That'll probably get you a similar thing, like 80,000 miles if you spend, I think it's like $6,000 in the same time frame. So then I'll spend $6,000 on that, get another 80,000 miles. Now I have 160,000 miles or points. And then I just keep building. that way. Instead of, if I spend to get 160,000 miles, I'd probably have to spend, I don't know, like a ton of money,
Yeah.
right? Like way more than whatever I spent, like $10,000 in those 6 months. I would have to spend, I don't know, probably like $40,000.
Yeah.
So that's how you kind of build up your points balance and be able to get enough to where you can book these bigger flights.
Right. Yeah. Billy has a Rolodex of credit cards, just like flipping through them.
I have the Rolodex, I have the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And it's important. And this is why not everyone does it, is because you have to be really organized. You have to know when you open the card, when you're going to close the card. You have to know exactly how much you need to spend and in what time, so that you don't mess it up and not get the points, or pay an additional annual fee that you don't really need to get those points.
Yeah.
I feel like I didn't really give a recommendation.
Oh, okay.
So I feel like I should. I think I did say the Sapphire Preferred. Sometimes they'll have higher sign-up bonuses, so definitely wait for one that's like 80,000 miles or points. Sometimes I think they've done 100,000 points for $4,000 in 3 months. So that would be a good time to apply if you see that. The other one that I always recommend is there's a Barclays American Airlines card, which is basically Google Barclays AA 70,000 or 70K. You get 70,000 American Airlines miles for just making one purchase and of any amount, and then pay the annual fee of $99. And then you'll get 70,000 miles. And then that 70,000 miles, you can fly within America. You can book a partner airline, which is one of their major partner airlines is Japan Airlines. So you can basically get a round trip to Japan in economy, just like that, just with one purchase, $99. Or you can do one way in business class for 60,000 miles if you find the availability. So that's how we did our Japan trip.
Yeah. Wow. Dang.
That one is going away. Barclays is no longer going to be partnered with American Airlines in the next year. So definitely do it before, I don't know when they're going to cancel the card, but definitely do it sooner rather than later.
All right, I gotta get this podcast out sooner than I thought, because we gotta get on that. Yeah. Dang, man, no, you're just blowing my mind with all this, because I'm just trying to like figure it out, like piece things together. And I know you're recommending like Barclays also with Hawaiian Airlines too, because I know they had a $70,000 not dollar,
like
Oof.
miles.
Yeah, mile.
Yeah.
Oof, $70,000.
No,
I'm like,
no. That's a no.
And yeah, I mean, you're just blowing my mind with this credit card like knowledge. But yeah, man, no, thank you for sharing your knowledge with that. I think it's we need to use these advantages in life, especially when things are getting so expensive nowadays. And I mean, you've been on many trips. You got 4 cruises lined up, right?
Yeah, we have one in February, April. Tara's going on one with some friends in July. And then we have one that we haven't booked yet, but
okay,
you
plan on it.
Yeah.
Is this, and that comes from like your credit card points?
It's also a credit card turned casino status thing. So basically, some credit cards give you statuses. Like if you ever go to like a hotel chain, like Hilton has like silver, gold, diamond, basically saying like how loyal you are to them.
Yeah.
And in this case, there's a Wyndham card. Wyndham is like a hotel chain, and there's a card that gives you diamond, basically their highest status. And then there was this loophole where basically you go to a casino, specifically in Atlantic City, you go to a casino, you say, I'm a Wyndham diamond member. Can you match that status? And then basically they say, yeah, we'll give you the highest status here. And then you can do that in a chain, and then you have status with like all the casinos, and the casinos think you're a big gambler. Like you're very loyal to us. We'll give you free cruises, we'll give you free hotel rooms, we'll give you free food, drinks.
So. Damn, and I know you're not a gambler that much.
I'm not a huge gambler, so it's nice, because otherwise I think people probably gamble like tens of thousands of dollars to get to where that status is.
So what I feel like important here what important with if you're researching into a credit card is to look at not only obviously multipliers. Well, first I would say sign-on bonuses. There's also the multipliers, but I think before that is the partners that they partner with, right? Like transfer partners. I feel like that's also super important.
Yeah, I think it is important. Well, it depends because I think for someone like me, I am kind of just out there to get as much as possible and then see what experiences I can do with those points. For some people, maybe you have a bucket list destination that you really want to go to. I was listening to some of your old podcast episodes, and you were mentioning like taking your family to Laos, right? So I actually, instead of work, I was I was looking up like, how do I get to Laos using points? So like for something like that where you have a bucket list destination, definitely make sure you look up how to do it. Like you can literally Google how to go to Laos, how to go to the Maldives, how to go to Japan on points. And then you can tailor your strategy to that. Let's say like for the Japan example, or I'll do the Laos example. Because, I don't know, it might be helpful.
No, super.
Yeah, so basically I Google that and then I see who flies to Laos from Boston, right? And Laos, there's no direct flight.
Yeah, nope.
So you kind of have to work your way to Asia and then Asia to Laos. So one of the ways that I found was really going to Thailand because I think like Bangkok is pretty close. And then there are direct flights from Bangkok to Laos. I think the capital city of Laos.
Yeah.
And there are definitely a few airlines that fly to Thailand, nothing direct from Boston, but then you kind of look at who is a transfer partner of who. And so one of the options is Qatar. I don't really know how to pronounce it. I think I've heard Qatar a lot. So Qatar Airlines flies Boston to Doha in Qatar and then Doha to Bangkok. And they're generally a pretty good option for points because they are actually a transfer partner, or one of their partners, like British Airways, is a transfer partner to a lot of the credit cards.
Okay.
So I think you can transfer like Capital One points to either British Airways or Qatar. And you can transfer Chase to British Airways, I'm pretty sure. You can transfer American Express directly to Qatar or British Airways. So in that way, you have 3 points that you can transfer to that airline.
Yeah.
And then I looked up some availability for that flight. It takes 95,000 miles one way in business class to go Boston to Doha to Bangkok. And so let's say for a round trip, you need 180,000. For 2 people in round trip, you need 360,000, etc. Right? And so that's your goal, that you can map out your strategy that way. And you say, I need 360,000 British Airways or Qatar points. And I can do that with Chase. I can do that with Capital One. I can do that with American Express. And I can end up combining them all. So I can go to Chase, get if there's a 100,000 point bonus, get that. I can go to American Express. I can get the gold. If there's a 100,000 point bonus there, I can get that. You're at 200,000. And then Capital One Venture X, you can throw in the American Express Platinum. You can throw in other Chase cards, Chase Inc. Unlimited. And then eventually you can map out your strategy to get 360,000. Transfer it all, book that flight, and then you can get there.
God damn.
And then that only gets you to Bangkok. There's really no option for points for those smaller flights from Bangkok to Laos, but then you go on Google Flights and it's like $100 flight. And it's an hour long. So it's like you do the majority of your trip in business class. The trip that really matters, like, you know, you don't want to sit in economy all day. So that's the important part. And then when you get there, you can do like a short 1 hour trip. You can even spend some time in Bangkok or Thailand. So.
All right, I'm on the hot now. It's time. It's time. All right, before we move on from credit cards, any last minute tips, tricks that you want to outlay to the people?
No, I think it's just a lot of organization. It's a lot of planning. So you do have to be organized from the get-go. And just do the research, I think. there's a lot of resources out there. Obviously, like I didn't learn all of this myself. There's a lot of YouTubers, there's a lot of guides out there. So definitely do your research before you apply. It still is a big decision,
Yeah.
right? And I think that the general advice is still true. Like, don't leave a balance on the credit card because that cancels everything out. The interest rates are crazy. So always pay your statement in full, and make sure you're organized. Yeah.
Well, you just done the viewers and the American people well justice right now with sharing your knowledge and living a luxury, living a more comfortable life and getting those experiences. So thank you so much. Me, everyone listening probably really appreciates it. So I want to dive into more of like your personal life now. So I know that you and Tara have been together for many years. Are you guys like going on a decade now? Like just relationship wise?
Yeah. Yeah. I think this would be our 10-year. Yeah.
So what is, in your perspective, the key to a healthy, successful relationship for especially being in one for so long now?
Yeah. I was thinking about this question, and I think all the cliches are true, right? Like, it's kind of a joke that people say, like, say yes, or like, say yes to your partner.
Yeah.
But I think there's some truth to that, where I think it's just listening to the other person and like being able to adapt in a way. They're obviously their own person. Like Tara's her own person. She has her own feelings, her own opinions. And she might not always be right, but like her feelings are valid, and she a lot of times is right. So it's listening and like making sure that you're not just kind of discrediting them. I think even if you think you know better, if you think you have the answer, it's like just having that ability to listen and say, yeah, you might be right, or let's think about this like together, and not just writing it off immediately. So, it's a lot of cliches like that, but I think there's a lot of truth in those cliches. Otherwise, I don't think they'd be cliches, right? Like, I don't think people would say that. So yeah, a lot of listening, a lot of like empathy, a lot of thinking things through together. Just like being a partner, being a partnership, instead of I'm always right and you should listen to me.
Yeah, it's a big thing on being a team. You guys are carrying out life together. That's the oath that you're literally taking.
Yeah.
And I know being able to just experience you guys' relationship. I mean, I'm only six years in, so being able to see that, I can see things that that I can learn from you guys, and not only from credit cards, but also relationships, and I know that you guys have had your own journey and your own difficulties. Every relationship has that, but I think what you're saying is true. Just even no matter how cliche, whatever it sounds, but like being an active listener, communicating your feelings, despite obviously present it in the way that your partner will receive it. Because I know that I for me, like I can't handle being yelled at or swearing just because of like childhood stuff, right? So at first I know I had to like voice that to Michelle in order for her to understand on how to express her feelings. And then even another thing is like about like fight languages too, which is I don't think it's anything new, but it's a new concept that's coming up a lot more about how to handle arguments and knowing what kind of person you are when you are feeling upset, and when your partner's upset. That is, if you understand that, I feel like the communication can be a lot better with you and your partner. And it's tough, man. Not every day that everything would be jolly goody. Like there are some days where you have to put in a lot more, and there may be some days where you don't have to, and that's that's okay. It's just the nature of what happens. But at the end of the day, it's you and your partner as a team going about life and how you want to envision that. And I feel like there are listeners that are single, or or maybe youngins like are starting to get into dating. As someone who's been in a very long-term relationship, what's advice that you can give two like newly, like newly couples, like they just started dating?
It's interesting because I don't know if, I mean, obviously, I basically I want to say I don't know if I'm qualified. And I say that because I really didn't have a lot of like dating experience, and like I think was basically my first like real long-term serious relationship, and obviously it worked out. But I don't have like a ton of experience in dating. But I will say, part of that is being lucky, but also I guess having an eye, or like thinking about how compatible you are in a way. Finding someone that shares the same goals or shares same values as you is really important. I think it's really hard to have a long lasting relationship if at the end of the day you're not aligned in some way. You might have a ton of fun with someone, you might like love traveling with someone, but at the end of the day, it's like when you're just sitting at home in your bed on the couch, you have fundamentally different views on things. It's hard to exist like that for years. So I think that's number one. That's important, is just finding someone like that, making sure you're aligned. But other than that, I think it's really hard to also create a loving relationship. And this is one of my values. If they're not really like empathetic, if they're not looking out for you, and then same like vice versa. So I think make sure just think about the other person and think about how they're feeling, what they're doing, how you guys interact.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if it just doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's a good point that you're talking about. If your values don't align, you don't have to, I feel like you don't have to, I was going to say you don't have to have the same perspectives in life, because obviously if you have different perspectives and you discuss about them, you understand different perspective. In some cases, it really just won't work if you really have different perspective on something.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's a good point. What else do you value or have values in a relationship besides like being your other partner, or both of you guys are empathetic?
Yeah, other values. I think I don't know. I think that's really the biggest one, just because Tara and I are very different people. She's louder, I'm quieter. She's, I think, more outgoing, willing to make friends, and like, not that I don't want to make friends.
Yeah.
But, she really goes out and like tries to like talk to people and stuff. And I'm more reserved, and I like to listen, and I like to like, and I think she said this on her podcast episode. And at sometimes I feel like I don't think what I have to say is as important. So I take a step back and I just listen. And I think that's good in some ways and bad in some ways, but we're very different people. But to coexist together, I think we've been able to play off each other and like understand the other person. That's how they are. That's how, their demeanor is, and like how they interact with people. And you can kind of fill in those gaps, I think. She doesn't like to, I guess, go ask people for stuff. She'll push me to do it. I think that's pretty normal, but but like fill in those gaps. Like if one person doesn't like to do something, the other person can like kind of fill that in. And if one person doesn't act a certain way, I think the other person can either nudge them in the right direction, or like be able to play that role in whatever setting they are. So I think that's also important, understanding the other, and that's kind of empathy, but understanding the other person and just, working off of that.
Yeah.
And then eventually you kind of get a really good sense of the other person and are able to do that without kind of talking about it or saying anything really, and you just kind of know.
Yeah. Well, man, I'm glad that you were able to like that you can talk value to me, that you feel like whatever you say is valuable. I always want to make you feel like you are in a safe space. So I'm gonna say, talk your shit, man. Talk your shit, because what you say truly is valuable, man. Like no matter what it is, like it's you're communicating like thoughts and stuff, and like, you know, I know it's easier said than done, but you know, really, it really is talk your shit and then see it and then see how they react.
I mean, in some ways, I think it's because I don't want to be that like annoying person. I don't want to be that person that's like weird or something. And another part of Tara and I's relationship, I think I also feel like I can be that person, and I don't care. Like I can be weird. I can be annoying. She'll tell you like I can be really annoying. So it's really finding someone that you're comfortable with like that. And then in a more social setting, I think I do tend to be a little bit more quiet, just because I don't want that to be the impression other people get from me. Maybe if we're like super comfortable with each other. But you know, it's less so, I think, for me, looking down on myself. It's more like I know I can be kind of annoying or like weird at times, so I don't want to show that side of me. But eventually I might. I don't know.
Yeah, eventually you get close, you gonna see it. But I don't know. I just can't think of a time that like, you know, ever like annoying or anything like that.
I don't know. I mean, I've probably said some like out of pocket stuff at times.
We can't share because we could get canceled.
Not here.
No, man. Yeah. I just, it's, relationships are work, and if you had to be willing to do the work to be with that other person. I'm not saying like, you know, you should grind yourself to the point where like, you know, you're miserable doing it. If you're miserable doing it, then that's like a, you know, red flag. Like you gotta get out there, get out of it. But no, I think it's value advice, and even though it's like you said, it's cliche, but it's the thing that that I feel like is successful. And when I talk to like other married couples and stuff like that, any difference of transition between going from like, you know, dating to marriage? Because you guys got married recently.
Yes. So it's been about a year, year and a couple months. I always said that it didn't feel very different, because we had moved in together already. We got a dog together, so it really felt like we were basically married without the title. And I do think in some ways like marriage is just a title, you know. Like I think it's important to figure out that you're compatible enough to be married before you actually do it. So after the day we got married, I don't think anything really changed. Like the day-to-day was the same. Obviously we had to go through the whole process of like name changes and like, I don't know, getting our marriage certificate signed and off to the city hall or whatever. But other than those like those little things, day to day was basically the same.
Yeah, well, it's good to hear, and especially because it's like you guys already done the work before, so it's already know.
Yeah.
You know, with Tara on her episode, she mentioned a lot of struggles that she went through, and obviously you guys were still dating at that point. What is your best advice to someone that's supporting someone that is going through a tough time with their mental health?
Yeah, this is hard because I mean, I can't imagine what it feels like for, you know, the person. But obviously for someone trying to support it, it can also feel pretty hopeless in a way, or like, you know, you don't have a lot of power. Because at the end of the day, the person themselves never wants to be in that situation. And I know it's really hard to like get out of that situation. And for a person supporting, it's like it's hard to like say things and not have them not have it like have an immediate impact, because you always want to see like, I say this, and like the hope is that, oh, like they said that, like I'm like
I'm good
great,
now.
you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
But it doesn't work that way, and it really is like very repeated. You know, you just have to show that you're there, and even when it doesn't seem like you're making an impact, you are, right? I think Tara talked about on her episode, when she went to the hospital. I think I was actually in California. I was traveling with my family, and that felt like even more powerless to me, even more so than like being next to her and like saying things and not having any impact, because I was across the country, and even if I could say anything like on the phone or like through text, it's like it has even less impact in my head, right? Like, but I think what she said about having people visit her, having people like show that they care, was important, you know, even if it doesn't seem that way, because they didn't immediately, you know, say like, "Oh, I'm good." But as Tara said, I think it does show that they have support. And for me, it's kind of like always a reminder. Like I have to remind myself, like I'm supporting this person. I am trying to. Sometimes it's not advice. It's sometimes it's just like, man, that sucks, right? And to me, as a very, I guess, I don't know, like advice forward person, like I really want to give advice. It's hard for me to say that sometimes, because it's like, I just want you to think about how to feel better, like to I don't know, to improve your mental health, and like tangible steps to get there. But sometimes it doesn't take that. And I think that's also a reminder to myself, like I have to keep going because it shows support, but also be able to provide just general support, not even advice. Just be like, I'm there for you,
Yeah.
like whatever you need. Like I can listen, I can you know, say that I'm here, I can give you advice if that is what you want, and try all those things, and keep trying all those things, even though it doesn't seem like it's helping on the outside. I think it does.
Yeah.
Right? Like just the effort that you put into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think this is something that is not talked about a lot, because we always talk about, you know, how to get through, how to deal with mental health and issues that you may be going through, but we don't talk about the other, how, you know, those individuals that are trying to help, because it's like, obviously it depends on like what works and what doesn't. And like you said, like actually in the episode prior, Waylon came on and he talked about how he's, you know, what he's dealing with and what he's going through, and how like people would say stuff to him, and he's like, he appreciates it, but he's like, I'm not feeling that immediate impact, but maybe later on it will. And like, yeah, it's just like kind of asking, and even if you ask the other person like, what do you need, sometimes they don't even know, you know. And then at that point, like you said, I think you made a great point about feeling powerless, because it's like, oh, like what if you don't know, then how can I help? But that's not their job also. So in supporting any way you can, and I want to stress this as well, is like giving advice when they want it, when they ask for it. If you're just giving blatant advice when they just need someone there to just sit with them or something like that, it's gonna throw them off. It's gonna be like, I don't even want you here at that point, you know.
And like I think even if they do want advice, it might not be the same advice. Like it's not always, if I were in your shoes, I would do this, because everyone's different. And like I can't imagine, like when I say I feel powerless, as I said, I can't imagine like what the person is actually going through. Like I've probably never felt that before, and I can give you advice like what I would do, but also think about like maybe practical advice that the other person can do that I wouldn't personally do.
Yeah.
Because like we are different people. We think different things. We have different experiences, and so, you know, it's hard. But yeah, like even if there's no immediate impact, I think showing that your support, or just listening to them, if they tell you they don't want you there, then like respect that. You know? Can't
Yeah.
force something that they don't want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's hard. It's a hard thing to deal with on both ends, but just show up, man. Like just show up and do what you can. And if they ask you to not be in their presence or whatever, then respect it. The decisions that go on next is kind of what's it called? It's a hard journey to think because you don't, if they are thinking about potentially harming themselves, it's hard to like be like I need to walk away. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
have you been in that situation before?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a moment where like it was very immediate. Yeah, I think I've been in that situation before. But it's obviously it's a very situation dependent thing. It's like if you actually see them or like know that they would do something in that moment, like obviously you do have to say like, no, I'm gonna stay right here. But I think it's kind of a gauge, and it does come with experience. It comes with like
Right.
knowing the other person and like paying attention to like signs where they actually would do something versus like they're just saying it. Like it's hard, right?
Yeah.
And it is, being in that situation, I think it all depends on the context and what they're saying, what they're doing, and there isn't a one size fits all, which is the hard part, obviously. But as you get to know the person, as you like go through more of those experiences with the person, that's when you can find out like what impacts them and what might be most helpful.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think it's yeah, like I said before, it's tough on both ends, but as long as you're able to show up for the other person in the way that you can, no matter what it is, it's gonna provide hope. Like I know when I was going through my depression and stuff, I was actually I was like pushing people away because I was just like, I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to, or the other side is like, y'all don't understand what I'm going through, so how could you ever say anything have things resonate with me? And I know other people who felt that way too. Like it's like you don't understand me, but as you as that person, you have to let people in. And maybe it's not about help, but it's also about just like there is someone there that is aware of what you're going through, and if you actually needed help, they can actually have enough evidence to figure out what to do next, right?
And that's true. Like I don't know what you went through. I don't know what you're thinking right now, what you're feeling, because I've never been in that situation, right? And I think it's important for someone who's trying to support to not take that personally. Like I think it can be easy to say, like if you told me you don't know what I'm going through, I can take that personally. I can be like, I can either think I do know what you're going through, like let me in, or like you're right, I don't know what you're going through, like I'm just gonna back off and let someone else try to figure it out, or like someone else who has gone through what you're going through. But in the end, I don't think I necessarily need to know what you're going through to like try to provide some support, and the ability to say like, you're right, I don't know what you're going through, but I can either be here to listen or like try to provide some advice or whatever you need. I think is helpful, or at least something to like for that person to grasp onto.
Yeah.
Whether they do or not, like, is up to them, and it's hard to say like whether it will positively impact, but at least you're trying. Like you're not just backing away and saying like, what, it's not worth it or something, because everyone's worth it. Like I definitely want to see the person like thrive.
Yeah.
And if I took that personally and I said, you're right, I don't know what you're going through, just forget it, then that feels even worse, I would think,
Yeah.
for the person than like admitting that I wasn't in that situation and But I am here to try to help and try to understand.
Yeah, no, for sure. The only thing you can do is just try. And if you left out of that situation of helping them and something happened, I feel like there's just a lot of guilt and shame that would come with it because you didn't do a lot more. But obviously, there's balance. Like, don't force yourself into it. Figure out a way to naturally, be able to help that person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure there would be, like, if something did happen, like, there would be guilt. But as I said, I think with me not knowing what that feels like for the person, it's like that is it's more so guilt that, like, I don't know, why couldn't I help this person, or why did I not try this and try that and stuff, which I guess is like guilt and stuff. But
Yeah.
Knowing that you at least tried doesn't absolve you, like, kind of, in a way, but it there is the effort put in. And most of the time I think that does at least help some way, and puts you in a good position to, like, recover, or, like, think a different way.
Yeah. So if you are supporting someone, I think you should take a lot of things from what we just discussed. I think some tips and it's a hard journey regardless, but that person that's going through it, like, whether they know it or not, I don't want to say needs it, but it gives them a light. It's a light of hope regardless. So yeah, making sure you kind of take something from this, and I really hope you do. All right, man. So, I think we talked about a lot of great things. There's a lot of things that I've actually didn't know about you, which I was, that I got to know. Again, this is which is why I was also really excited to hop on a pod with you, because it's just like, what is something about Billy that I didn't know about? So a lot of the questions I was asking you, that was like, it's out of my own, like, curious mindset,
Yeah.
I mean, we've been friends for like 6 years or so. So,
Yeah.
and, obviously we great bond, and we talk, we have discussions. You got to know more about me too through all those years, but I'm glad I was able to, that letter just, like, definitely resonates with me. It leaves me an impact on, just a pivotal moment in your life. And just want to say, as a friend, like, it's an honor, and, like, great just being your friend. I think it's like, I know drunkenly I've said, you're a good man, you're a good man, but I think I mean it just because of, I know your values, where you come from, your intentionality to just come from love and not harm. And yeah, man, I just value your friendship, who you are. And yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on to talk with me, and just give your 2 cents on life, even though you feel like, that kind of, like, hesitation from talking. But again, talk your shit.
Yeah, and I very much appreciate, the chance to come on this podcast. It was a great conversation, and I am shy in a way. I don't like to talk about myself a lot, but I feel like I'm never the type to be, if someone asked me a question, I wouldn't say I don't want to talk about that or whatever. Like, I'm very open. I'm an open book. I just don't express it without being prompted. Like, I feel like my life isn't, like, I don't want to say important enough, but, like, my life isn't important enough in a way, where I just want to blurt it out. I know some people are very open to that, and, like, all the power to them. But I just, if anybody wants to know anything about me, like, ask, and I'll answer. But it's like, I just don't like come out and say, like, here's what I did today.
Yeah.
This is my whole life story.
Let me get you my TED Talk real quick.
Yeah.
All right, man. This is my favorite game usually, because I just want to see how people are with, like, lyrics and music. So we're gonna play song association. How that game works is, like, I give you a word, and then you have to come up with a song title or song lyric that has that word.
Okay.
I prefer singing it, but of course you could just talk it.
Okay. Yeah.
And then you would do the same. So I think the word that I want to give you is fire. That was the first thing that came to my mind.
You are my fire.
Good shit. The one desire. Dang.
That song's kind of ruined because, not ruined, but all I can think about is Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh,
so it's like,
yeah.
it's not even the original song.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's them in a lineup.
Yeah. Oh, it's so funny. It's so funny. You guys haven't watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine, that scene.
Yeah.
I forgot, is it Adam Sandberg that plays?
What's Andy Sandberg?
Andy Sandberg. Yeah. He's a cop. He gets them all lined up.
Yes.
And the lady was like, oh, the killer was singing Backstreet Boys.
I Want It That Way.
Yeah.
And then so he goes down the line and they all sing a part of it.
Yeah. And then he's like goes 1, 2, 3, 4.
He gets really into it.
Yeah, he gets so
and now
into
5.
And now 5. And he's like, oh, I'm getting chills. And the person that he asked who killed it is number 5. He was the one that killed. He's like, oh my god, I forgot I was doing that. It's a good scene.
It's such a kind of messed up show because he should be a serious cop.
Yeah,
but it's so funny.
Yeah. All right, man. Now it's your turn to give me a word.
Love.
Justin Bieber's Love Myself.
Oh, it's all Justin
Love Yourself.
Bieber.
It's all Justin Bieber now. Cause if you wait, what?
If you
like the way you look that much, you should go and love yourself.
But it was supposed to be
yourself. Yeah. Ooh, okay.
No, that's good.
I was like, what's the other one with love? Oh, Kendrick's love me, love me, love me. Yeah. I love that one. All right, man. So let's get in questions from the audience. I'm only laughing because you already know who will be asking that many questions.
Yep.
Okay, so first question. I'm actually just gonna go through them and see how it goes. First question, or mini question, comes from your wife Tara. Mm-hmm. Who do you love more?
Wally. I was there when she wrote the question, so she understands.
True. Okay, there you go. What is your second question? What is your top priority in life?
Top priority. I think it's I think it's just being a good person and positively affecting other people. Whether that's just day-to-day interactions. I do want to not make anybody mad or not make anybody have a bad day because of me. But also, going through the big experiences and having the ability to do that with Tara and do that with our future kids, my parents, her parents, just people that I cared about. Positively affecting them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the concept of we don't have to dive into it, but concept of being a good person is definitely a tough one to wrestle. Yeah. But it's whatever you think that is, and as long as you're aligning with it and it doesn't rely on other people's opinion of you, I think that's a good mindset to have.
Yeah.
So the third question is, from Tara again, if you could go back in time and change one thing in your life, what would it be?
Change one thing in my life. So I feel like I don't live with many regrets. Partially because I don't remember a lot of my early life. But I guess if it's one thing, I'll start off with something small, just because we talked about it already. Is going to Chinese school and just being more in touch with my Chinese language, Chinese heritage a little bit more. But I think bigger than that, maybe just doing more things when I was younger. Like I said, my middle school, high school days were filled with playing video games at home. And even in college, I think I didn't do everything that would have been cool to do. I did some things, in college. I joined a dance team, which was very
damn. I forgot you
crazy.
danced. Damn, I forgot.
we can dive into it. But yeah, just doing more things when I was younger. In high school, I probably could have just gone out more, done more things with friends, tried new things, even explored more, like traveled more.
All right, man. So let's get into the big three questions. These are questions that I feel like could leave an impact on our viewers. First question I have for you is, what advice would you give to your younger self?
That's actually, I think it's very tied to that question about, what would I have done differently? I think I definitely would have told myself to do more things, to explore Boston or explore my identity more. If I maybe did like dance in high school, I might have been a different person. Or like just going out to like different bars and clubs. I don't know. I'm not a big club person, but then again, I don't think I've ever really been. So I don't know if I am or not. I just say that I'm not.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely do more things. Go out there and explore the world. Explore Boston. Explore your local area. And explore yourself.
Yeah. No, for sure. I feel like I was gonna say, being in Connecticut, it's like hard to just, you could do everything in a day if you wanted to explore more. But no, it's true. Like, explore yourself, and even like going on these like international trips. Like I felt like I wished I thought about that more, especially like during summer break. Sometimes, obviously I was a broke college kid and wanted to, work to save money and all that stuff. But I could have used like, a week or two to go like somewhere in Europe, and I wish I did that and planned that out. But obviously, you know what you know at that age, right?
Yeah. And luckily, I think I did do that once. I went to Florence with a couple of my friends in high school, and that was a really cool trip, and it kind of let me know that I could travel and like do these big international trips by myself or with friends or like with people other than my family.
Yeah. My first airplane ride was actually just to Florida. It wasn't anything international, but I was like, where do I go? What do I do? And I was like, why didn't I think about this? When I was younger stuff. Yeah. So my second question to you is, what does becoming the highest version of yourself mean to you, and how are you doing that today?
I've tried to give this question a lot of thought, and I think the honest answer is I don't really know. But I think it ties back to that question of, well, one, like, what would I tell my younger self, but also what am I passionate about? So I think what I am doing is focusing on these like different experiences, focusing on being able to experience things that I would otherwise not be able to, or that I really want to do. So like our trips to Japan and our trips to Hawaii, like trying to cross things off our bucket list while we still can, and before we have kids and all that stuff that comes up. But then I think long term I also want to do that same thing with my kids. So sharing those experiences, I think, will become a really big part of, becoming the highest version of myself, and allowing others, like specifically kids and Tara, to be, highest versions of themselves as well. And probably one thing I do want to do is explore a little bit more of, Chinese language. Maybe learn to read and write or something.
There you go.
It's so hard. It's like so intimidating.
Yeah.
I know a little bit. I took it in high school, but that's like nothing.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah, I think about like a travel with something for me, like when me and Michelle like take photos in like different countries and stuff.
Yeah.
Be really dope if our kids were like, oh, like this is where mom and dad were, like lining the exact like same shot and stuff. Would be super cool. And like the only reason why I think about it, because I don't know if you were familiar with the Netflix series Exo Kitty.
I think I've heard of it.
Yeah. But basically, like she goes to the school that her mom went to in Korea, and then like she takes pictures of where like the same pictures that she had and where she was. So I kind of like thought about that idea. not forcing my future kid to do that, but it'd be really cool to just see that come to fruition, you know.
Yeah.
And my last and final question for you is, if you could connect me with someone to come onto this podcast that you think would be great, who would it be and why?
Yeah, so I think one name that came to mind was Kevin Lee. So I think you know Kevin from college.
Yeah.
And I know him from high school. We've been friends ever since. Actually, he went to middle school with me as well. That 1 year before BLS. It's weird because BLS is like starts in 7th grade. So yeah, I know him from that, and you know, we've been friends. We're not the type of friends that like talk to each other every day, but whenever I talk to him, I think it's like catching up with like a really good friend. And you know, I think he has a lot of life experience. I think he has a lot to say, and could really, you know, I always learn a lot from him about his interests and about his life, and you know what he's gone through, and you know, just being a good friend in person. So
For sure. Yeah, we set it up. I haven't seen that dude in like a minute.
I
So
know.
I need
me
to-
neither. Me neither. And it's like, yeah, I basically never see him, but you know, every time we get together, it's like we can crack jokes, we can talk about whatever we want to. It's great.
Yeah, I feel like I'm always just laughing when that dude just says anything out of his mouth.
Yeah,
So I'll be interested to see the other side of, you know, more serious mindset.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, guys. Well, if anything resonated with you, please like, share, comment, subscribe, rate this podcast 5 stars. Anything to grow the community, create more impact would be muchly appreciated. I appreciate you guys. And as always, let's fall in love with the process of getting better every day and becoming the highest version of ourselves. Love y'all.